Welcome to Intuition, Wine, and High Vibing, where you will learn and talk about everything energy. So grab a glass of wine and join your host, Jennifer Leslie Watson.
Hey, everybody. Thank you so much again for tuning in. I just wanted to say real quickly you are not crazy. I did not post a podcast last week. I actually had a lot going on, and I was also preparing to go out of town. So it was just crazy hectic, and I had no time to sit down and record. But I am back this week, and I actually want to do something that's a bit practical, and I think that's it's something that can relate to a lot of people, especially people that are developing their intuition. So this show actually stems from a question that I had in my Facebook group, The Intuitive Life, and one of the members did one of the exercises that I had posted, and she asked, "What do I do when I get unwanted intuitive information?" So, in an effort to describe and help this particular member and also everyone else out there, what do you do? But there are so many things that I actually have to describe prior to telling you what to do, just to make sure you're not experiencing some of these things, okay? Before we dive into it, I want you to make some distinguishes. I want you to distinguish fear versus intuition. This plays a huge role, especially when we're receiving guidance from our higher self and you're not really sure if it's something that you're just projecting as a fear or if it's true intuitive information that you're receiving. So, like for example, myself, I have this fear of a car crashing into me while I'm driving, especially when I have my children in the car. And I must say that this is something that is a fear of mine. It's not an intuitive hit that I'm receiving. It really lives in my imagination. And I understand that because this is something that has happened to me in the past. So I have to distinguish life event that's happened to me in the past as coming back as a fear. I've been, in an accident, not anything particularly too major, but nevertheless, it's an accident. And I had to understand that that's stemming from that life event that's happened in my past. It's not an intuitive hit. Now, here's the reason why I know that it's a fear of mine from a past situation. It's because my imagination or my fear, it lives in my headspace. It's something that will come up and then it will go away. For example, whenever I have this particular thought to come up, I say, okay, I acknowledge you thought, and now it's time for you to float away. And once it floats away, it doesn't come back. So that's how your imagination works. You may have a thought 1 minute, and then the next minute it's going to float away and it won't come back. Now, if I were to listen to my intuition, and for example, if this was a true intuitive hit, it would not float away. I would actually be able to feel it in my body that something may not be right. I would be able to feel maybe nervous or anxious, or maybe I may start feeling pain in a certain part of my body. But as long as I am in tune with my body and especially my emotions, then I'll know how to distinguish what lives as a fear inside of my head versus an intuitive hit that would live in my body. So let's talk a little bit more about emotions, because I always like to say that emotions are like our inner compass. It tells us where we're going. It tells us if we're going in the right direction or the wrong direction. And pretty much, I always, and this is kind of a side note, I always say that you want to make sure that you're living in higher vibration emotions versus lower vibration, because the more that you live in higher vibrations, the more you're able to be guided to higher places, things that you want, stuff like that. But if you're trying to figure out if this is fear or intuition, one thing that I want to tell you to do is to tune into your emotions, but also feel and describe what feelings you have prior to receiving the information. And then also think about the thoughts that you had prior to receiving the information. So you have to take a look at your feelings and your thoughts. And the more you become in tuned with your emotions, the more you would be able to distinguish what's going on in the outside world. All right, so let's actually dive a little bit into something else. Let's leave fear versus intuition and let's move into logic versus intuition. And I think a lot of people will be able to relate to this because we are reasoning beings. And that's one of the gifts that we have as being humans. We're able to reason. And when it comes to reason, we have to think about having logic. Sometimes our logic can get us into trouble. But what I want to actually say is that sometimes life hands us disappointments. My question to you is, how do you handle those disappointments? How do you handle them? What do you do when your coworker has put in for a promotion and so have you? What do you do when that person receives that promotion? Actually, let's back up. What do you do when that person puts in for a promotion and you're looking at it logically? Well, that person has more experience, that person has been here longer, that person has a relationship with the boss that's analyzing the promotion criteria. What do you think? What do you feel as you're analyzing? Because that's logical, right? So if you take a look at your coworker who has had more tenure than you have, how do you react? What are you feeling when you think that? But then you also have to take a look at what do you do during disappointment events? What do you do when your coworker gets that actual promotion? How do you feel? How do you react? And what would your logic tell you to do at that time? Would your logic tell you to try again next time that comes around? Would your logic tell you that that person was more qualified for the position? But what would your intuition tell you? Your intuition is going to always put yourself higher. It's going to put yourself first. It's going to tell you what you need to do and what you need to know. So would your intuition tell you something differently versus what logic will already tell you? So let's say it's something that's fearful. What would your logic tell you? So let's go back to my example. If I'm driving and I have this fearful hit of getting hit in a car, now I have to analyze my logic. That's not going to happen because they're in this lane. They're very far away. There's no possibility of something happening, or there's no way that somebody's going to be able to hit us, from behind because there's no other cars around. That's logic. But what will my intuition tell me? My intuition will probably tell me the same thing. But then you may have something that could happen where you're trying to decipher whether it's logic or intuition. And so sometimes they can come hand in hand, but sometimes they're not hand in hand. So let's go back to the example of your coworker getting a promotion over yourself. Would your intuition tell you that it wasn't time for you to have that promotion? Would your intuition tell you that maybe you're not going to be at that company for a particular length of time because you're going to have a better position in the future? Logic may tell you that you may not deserve that promotion. Logic may tell you that you might not deserve that promotion at that particular company, but then your intuition can tell you to act and maybe possibly leave that company. Who knows? The sky's the limit. So pay attention to how your logic and your intuition actually intertwines but also acts separately. All right, so now let's take a look. At what intuition is. And this is going to play into the whole fear and logic versus intuition, because intuition is neutral and it's non-judgmental. Let me say that again for the people in the back. Intuition is neutral and non-judgmental. So let's return to our example, okay? Our example of the whole promotion thing at your job. That way we can try to distinguish whether it was logic or intuition, which headspace you're acting in, where you're acting from. You're not going to go using your intuition saying, oh, that person didn't deserve this, I deserved it, or I can't stand that person, I don't understand why they got it, they don't even know how to do the job. Let me tell you right now, that is not your intuition. That is a low vibrational state of anger. And yeah, that's not neutral or non-judgmental. What if none of that applies? What if you are meditating and you're not acting in a space of fear or judgment or logic? What if you truly got something and you're just not really sure how to handle it? I'm going to give you some tips, okay? First and foremost, before you actually start to meditate and you are looking for inner guidance during your meditation, you must be grounded and protected. When you're grounded, this is literally what I do when I'm meditating, right? I imagine that my feet are flat on the floor. Well, actually, they are flat on the floor. I imagine that roots are growing out of my feet. I imagine these roots growing out of my feet that are going through the floor and through the foundation and into the ground. That is being grounded. Because during meditation, I am heightening my inner self. I am heightening my spirit. And to give you a visual, it's almost as if I am this very tall being and my higher self is stretching as far upward as it can into the universe, but my feet are also very well planted into the ground and going as deep as they can. And the reason why is because you can actually get high from meditating. And if you're not planted and grounded, you can easily be in this la la land for a very long time. And trust me, I'm telling you this from personal experience because I have definitely meditated without grounding. And I swear it felt like I had took some Percocet that I had from when I had my daughter C-section. That's how high you can get. And so it can take some time to kind of come back down to earth, not feel like you're floating away with the stars and the moon and the sky. So you definitely want to make sure you're grounded, because the more grounded you are, the more that you're able to be a part of the earthly world as well as the spiritual world. Like I mentioned before, you want to make sure that you're protected, because you want to ensure that the negativity that lives outside of you does not penetrate your energy or world. So there's quite a few different ways that you can actually protect yourself. I can give you some examples, like, using sage, meditating, using positive affirmations, lighting candles, or calling on your angels to surround you, calling on your guides. Me personally, because I'm a very visual person, I actually like to imagine a white light protecting myself. On a side note, whenever I go to sleep at night, my nightly prayers, I envision a white bubble protecting my home, protecting my children, my family, my husband. I imagine that. Not necessarily just for my body or my home. Any negativity that tries to penetrate, it literally bounces off of that bubble. So whether it's for yourself or your home, imagine the negativity bouncing off, and it has no room to live where you are. No room at all. But you can also actually combine some of these methods. I love to light candles. I love my Himalayan salt lamp. I love burning my sage. I burn incense. I do the visualization of the white light surrounding. I do it all. I mean, you have to do whatever is most comfortable for you. So there's no right or wrong way to do it. Again, to make sure you're grounded and protected. So, but what if you still get this unwanted information, right? And it really kind of depends on what unwanted means, because that is a word of judgment and it can only be applied to the person that's saying that it is unwanted. It can be a range of things because we all have our own different realities. But for generally speaking, I'm just saying unwanted in the sense of it being something that is dangerous or hurtful, possibly sad. That's what I'm saying unwanted means. But it can range from person to person. So there are some things that I want you to do if you still get this. I want you to allow the thought to float in to your head and then float away like a cloud. If you get this unwanted thought and it's coming up, you're just going to allow it to flow in and then float out. I'm telling you to do that because, especially if you're meditating and you allow that thought to come in and you kind of hone in on it, it's definitely going to deflect the reason why you need to meditate. If you just kind of push it away real fast, it can also give you a headache. I raise my hand because, yes, that's happened to me. But then if you're getting that unwanted info, I want you to actually take notice of how you feel in your body. How do you feel, going back to the emotional compass, how do you feel receiving that information? What's going on? Do you feel pain in your body? Do you feel anxiety? Do you feel your heart is beating faster? What do you feel in your body? Do you have a fight or flight response? It could be many different things. And then really, you must release the fear of having any future unwanted thoughts. You have to release that fear because I'm going to go back to rule number 1. Fear is not real. Fear is this illusion that we create inside of our head that we try to make real, but it hasn't even happened yet. So how in the hell can it be real? So release that fear of potential future thoughts, because remember, your intuition is always going to be neutral and non-judgmental. Another very helpful tip is to journal. Now, I know you may say, I don't have time for journaling. Let me just stop you right there. Journaling doesn't mean that you have to sit there and write this 5-page essay on what happened with your day and what happened during the week. That's not journaling. It can be journaling, but it doesn't have to be journaling. The end all be all to journaling. It literally can be just you writing down a couple of thoughts that's going on. Like if you get this unwanted information, you get fearful information, or you're trying to decipher logic versus intuition, write it all down. Write down your life events, your intuitive hits, the fear, write it all down. Because the reason why I say that is because you're able to go back and reference what you've written to be able to see what has come to fruition. You're actually able to analyze your life thoughts. You're actually able to analyze your life events to see if maybe or possibly that could be the reason why you receive that unwanted information. You could look at your fears to see if it was something that you just created. You can look and see if it was something that you imagined or created in your head that lives in your headspace. So journaling allows you to write everything down so that you can go back and analyze it later. And the more that you do that, the more you can actually see some patterns and consistencies within your life events, your fears, and your intuition. And I promise you, it will be a great point of reflection. If you're able to have that point of reflection, you'll be able to reference it over and over and over again. So, the last thing that I want to recommend is during meditation, don't be afraid to ask, what the fuck does this mean? I do not understand. I need some clarification on this. Don't be afraid to sit in your quietness and ask the questions. Ask the questions because it's unwanted information. You're going to want to know where it stemmed from. You're going to want to know, especially asking, what significance does this thought serve in my life? Is there any significance? And only your inner self, your higher being, will be able to answer that. But you have to allow the answer. And then when you allow that answer, again, go back to feeling how your body feels at that moment. Notice if your heart is racing. Notice if you start sweating. Notice if, your hand starts twitching. I don't know, something. Notice how your body feels. So hopefully those tips were able to help you to kind of navigate this way of learning how your intuition works. So don't be afraid to ask questions. If you need clarification on anything, hit me up in my Facebook group, The Intuitive Life. Join the group. Now, it is for ladies only, but if you are a male, by all means, hit me up on my Facebook business page. That's Watson Wellness Group. Again, that's Watson Wellness Group. As always, I love each and every one of you, and I'm so glad that you are here. Be the light in the world that the world needs. Show love where love is needed. Show love where there's darkness, and show love where there's just more love there. And it never hurts. All right, y'all, take care. Let me know what you think, and I look forward to talking to each and every one of you. Have a wonderful day, night, evening, weekend, whichever. Bye-bye.